watching Rebuild Projects.
After so many months of sanding and fiberglassing and painting, we are inside the boat. We have just put multiple layers on the outside, sandwiched by foam and the old hull, and now 3 layers on the inside. And we've tabbed in the bulkhead to the cabin and the bulkhead to the helm. And these sides are ready to get some love. Yes, I said it. The sides need love like every other part of the boat. And these sides need a little bit more love than I was thinking. My poor little gunnels. I worked so hard getting these lines down, but this top part of the gunnel I had to cut in half. And I've done it because I need to extend this gunnel so that I can fit a few things into this side, as well as the starboard side. This boat is going to need more foam. Let's talk about foam for a second. Bear with me, it'll only take a second. But basically, I took out a bunch of foam from the old boat. It had 2 sleeper seats. They were about 4 feet each by 8 inches high by, 20 inches wide. But they were filled with this old foam, very dry foam, so that's good. And the floor of the old boat is filled with foam in the stringers, but that's only about 8 inches at the midpoint, and then it kind of tapers out, and it's for about 12 feet by 4.5 feet. But that was the amount of foam in 1986 that was minimally required for the old boat. Now we've maxed this boat up. We've beefed it up. And the Coast Guard and my insurance agent really recommend that I put more foam back in. Now, foam in a small boat is a prerequisite for the Coast Guard. On the West Coast here, you need a minimum amount of foam. And, it's debatable. It's not debatable in terms of do you need it. It's debatable of whether you, especially with an older boat, if it's going to help you. Now, as a minimum, it may not help you. If you exceed and have positive buoyancy, then it's definitely like a Boston Whaler or any of the new boats have positive buoyancy. Now, without getting into a debate of why you need foam or should you have foam or is foam really needed, not only for the safety of the fam, but for just the fact that if this boat ever flipped, I want to be able to jump on top of it and save my life and my kid's life. Basically, if you ever watched Titanic, if that crate that Kate Winslet was on was just a little bit bigger and could float, then poor old Jack could have just jumped on and they would have lived happily ever after. So you want to be able to jump on your hull and that it will float until somebody comes to rescue you. Issue is I have no place to put foam other than the sides of this boat. I would love to use the sides as cubbies for fishing rods and for tackle and for fenders. And this old boat, that's exactly what you had. But it's a bigger boat now, and it's got more girth. And I need to think about safety. So I got to fill these suckers up. Now, luckily, my boat association and my insurance, they have awesome calculators online. And you can put in all the inputs to the width and the beam and the length and the size of your boat and how much it weighs, and it should tell you exactly the minimum amount of foam you need. So I've done that. Also, the pod in the back that we made, or the extension, it has a volume of air in it. I'm not putting foam in that for a number of reasons we'll talk about in the future, but those will be, they are watertight, and I'm going to put 2 watertight ports in there so I can take a look and make sure that there's no water getting into them. But that has an input or an addition to the positive buoyancy of this whole thing. But now that I know that I'm going to put sides on, and the sides that I'm going to use, well, I'm going back to the old tonneau covers. Basically, I took a tonneau cover. I've got this black one from the backyard. I pulled it from the stock. I've been replenishing the stock, by the way. I got a new white one a week or two ago. But this black one is perfect for what I need here. I split it down the middle. I have ground down the sides. I've modified the back a little bit because these tonneau covers have a core and 2 layers. So I actually precisely cut the back and cut away the core and ground it down because this side piece is going to fit right here, which will do one of 2 things. It'll give me a little more gunnel because I'm going to tie it into the gunnel. It'll give me a better gap for me to do my pour foam because I'm going to use a 2-part foam, pourable foam. I've noticed that after watching 10 YouTube videos on people's experiences pouring foam into their boat, that you don't want to just pour it down one area and hope that it fills up the whole void. You want to be able to do nice smaller pours until it builds up, and that'll fill any air voids out. Pow! Oh, that's good coffee. I need controls on the starboard side for the outboard and the kicker. That is going to go in a tube or a chase. And because I have a ton of it, I am going to use a bunch of ABS. For the controls for the outboards and the wiring harness is going to be a 3-inch tube on the starboard side, followed by a 2-inch tube for any of the hydraulics. I like to separate the hydraulics from any electrical, just in case something popped. And then probably a 1-inch tube dedicated on both sides, or sorry, a 1.5-inch, just for wiring. Any wiring that needs to go from the stern up to the bow. Each side's going to have its own chase. And then I've got a really interesting idea. I want an anchor. I think the boat needs an anchor, but because I'm doing all that funky stuff in the cabin with a pop-up tent, that kind of negates anything I can do on the bow deck. So normally on the bow deck you would have some sort of winch or windlass, depending on how big your boat is. Windlass is more for chain, but I got my hands on, well, this part of it. The other part is, well, there's actually 3 parts, but basically this is a capstan. A capstan is kind of like a winch for rope. You'll find them on sailboats. You could find them all over the place, but I got my hands on one of these, very reasonable, and I got an idea. My idea is to mount it into the port side gunnel. I'll make some supports and I'll box it out so foam can't get to it, but it will sit right around midpoint of this gunnel. I'm going to have a co-pilot seat here and a bench here. The bench is going to be able to cover the gas tanks and any other of the fuel filters and whatever else I got cooking in there, the bilge. But this will sit here and, excuse me, and basically I will be able to take a tube that'll come all the way from the bow roller, integrate it into the top of the bow deck, and then pop out through this gunnel here. There'll be a drain for any water because the rope's probably going to get wet, and that'll go down into the floor and into the bilge. But then I'll have a rope that'll come out for the anchor rope, and I'll be able to use this sucker and pull that anchor up. It'll be able to be multifunctional because I have a buddy named Aaron who got me into prawning. It's so fun to throw some prawn or some crab traps out. And if you've ever prawned or crab trapped, and you're lucky and they get filled with prawns or crabs. They get pretty heavy. Plus you got 100, 200, 300 feet of rope. And trying to pull those suckers up, they just, oh, the burn is crazy. So this will be able to be my electric prawn puller, rope puller. I'll make my own bracket, my own little pulley system, and that'll mount on here. And I need to put some support for cleats on either side. So the port side and the starboard, a little bit different with what you need in them.
has been swept. It's closing time and I'm a little tired. It's a long time since I'd slept. But things are moving forward. I'm ready to move on. Heading for a brand new start at the break of dawn. Here I come, you better watch out. You better beware, the rumor is out. Nothing can stop me, I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark, I'm out of the cold. Here I come, you better watch out. You better beware, the rumor is out. Nothing can stop me, I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark, I'm out of the cold. Tomorrow's getting closer. Yesterday is gone. A destination nowhere.
So I got the onesie on, the jumpsuit, got the Sander 6000 mega mask, which is basically so essential when you're going to do a big sanding session. And yes, that's what we're doing today, a sanding session. For you, it's been a couple minutes. For me, it's been 2 days because I got 2 coats of fairing on. And the first coat of fairing, I just mixed up my own mix with laminating resin, and it didn't kick off. We're dealing with about a week of rain here. The humidity's higher, the temperature's a bit lower. So it took like a full day and a half to kick off, enough that I could apply the second fairing. And this one's gray. I mixed in a little bit of the gray tint that I use for my gel coats, and it just kind of demarcates the 2 layers. So if I sand down a little too much, I'll know. But the second layer also had that sanding agent or that wax additive, so that kicked off right away. So we're good to go here. We've got all of the weapons of choice, grinder with the diamond disc. We've got the orbital with a 60 grit, a sheet sander with a 60 grit, which is really nice for doing any of the outside edges. And then my favorite, the 1-inch belt sander with the 60 grit, gets all those coves really nice, those edges all around. So we tabbed everything in, multiple layers, inside the cockpit and inside the sides. That was a bit of a little fuddly-duddly, but that all got done. And I laid this on pretty thick, and I put quite a bit of talc and micro bubbles or glass bubbles into it, so it should sand out pretty well. Now, once I've got that all done, then we can mix up some primer and get this all into primer. Yeah. So we'll prime the floor, we'll prime the sides, we'll prime the helm, we'll prime the bulkhead, we'll prime these back boxes, and hopefully, humidity and weather permitting, temperature it'll kick off overnight, because I'd like to get all this done today. Then we could come back and fill these side pockets with foam. Once that's done, we can cap the gunnels, which will be awesome. And that'll leave us in a really good position to move on to the bow deck, which, I don't know if I have explained to you how cool it's going to be to build a big hatch. Basically, it's going to be like the trunk, the front trunk on your trunk. The front hood, the hood on your truck or your car. I'm going to build my own hood that'll be able to pop up, and there'll be a tent in there, and that'll give more headroom. But we got to think about how it's waterproof. We got to think about supporting it. We got to think about how you're going to hinge it. Anyways, a lot of things I'm thinking about up there. But I don't want to get too far ahead. Today, we're just going to get grinding, literally, figuratively, get sanding. And yeah, next thing you know, I should be mixing up some primer.
The chairs are on the table, the has been swept. It's closing time and I'm a little tired. It's a long time since I've slept. But things are moving forward. I'm ready to move on. Heading for a brand new start at the break of dawn. Here I come, you better watch out, you better beware, the rumor is out. Nothing can stop me, I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark, I'm out of the cold. Here I come, you better watch out, you better beware, the rumor is out. Nothing can stop me, I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark, I'm out of the cold. Tomorrow's getting closer. Yesterday is gone. A destination nowhere. I travel on my own. Here I come. You better watch out. You better beware. The rumor is out. Nothing can stop me. I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark. I'm out of the cold. Here I come. You better watch out. You better beware. The rumor is out. Nothing can stop me. I'm going for gold. I'm out of the dark. I'm out of the cold.
All right. Gives me a chance to, oh yeah, sit in my new, old, used but new captain's chair, have a little coffee, and let's talk about, recap about where we're at with the sides of the boat. Got the starboard and the port side. Basically, with the starboard side, we got all those tubes in, we got everything ready for the controls, and then I poured it with that two-part pour foam. And I like to wrap some plywood with some sheathing tape, and then I screwed it to the top. And what that did for me was it allowed the pour foam to rise, kind of hit that top cap, and then want to go back down and fill any nooks and crannies instead of just taking all of its energy and you know, coming up. But a lot of people also, like, they will do an open stringer system or whatever, and then they'll pour the foam and then it'll go up really high past the stringers and then they'll cut it down, which is great. But I find it kind of a waste. And with the price of pour foam, each side here was about 7 cubic feet, and it took all of a 2-gallon set on each side. They say with a 2-gallon set you should get about 8 cubic feet, 7 or 8. But I found, because I don't know, maybe I didn't mix it enough, maybe it was the temperature, it filled everything up, but I was a little short over here. That worked out, and I'll tell you why in a second. But if you put those top caps on, I find that it's easy to sand after. It made it really flush to the old gunnel tops. I sanded it back, and then I put a coat of epoxy, well, gel coat, just to seal up those cells that I sanded down. Even though they say it's closed cell and water shouldn't be able to get in, just in case, I like to seal up the top. So that's starboard side. I have to cut a hole over here for the controls, but that's going to come down the road. And then over here on port side, I sealed it up like we talked about. I cut the tube that's coming out of the kind of angular part of the hull here, and that is going to be a tube, or that is a tube that leads up to the anchor locker. We're going to get to that down the road. But that brings me over to here. You saw me cut an access on this side of the boat, a little, I think it's 1 foot by 1 inch by 1 foot by 14 inch. Yeah, it's an access panel for a motor that goes to a capstan. In order to have that motor accessible so I can service it or replace or repair it down the road, I needed to create an access panel. That means I had to go into the foam. Now, that was not that bad, because when I started looking into the foam, I knew I was always going to put one there, so I actually didn't want to waste as much pour foam, so I put some styrofoam in there just as a kind of a block out, so I could chip the styrofoam. It's a lot easier than the pour foam. But I took my oscillating saw, I cut to the hole size, and it was good because it's almost like looking at a cross layer of your whole pour, and it was encapsulating that styrofoam, and it looked like it had pushed everywhere, so it was nice and solid. Once I got all that foam out of there, I came back, I did a epoxy, not polyester, I did an epoxy coating to the foam, because epoxy doesn't react as much to the foam as polyester does. Then I did a 1708 fiberglass layer, and then a chop mat layer. And once that was dry to the tack, I was able to then, that's when I actually came in and put some gel coat on all these top surfaces and the whole interior there. So that leads us to today. Today I need to get these gunnels capped. So I could just glass it over, but that would just give me a, at the most a 1/8 of an inch after 3 or 4 layers of fiberglass. But what I'm going to do is I have profiled and cut down, milled some of that composite decking board. So I've milled it to just under 1/4 of an inch thickness by 6 inches wide, and the full length of the gunnel cap. And that is going to get thickened resin down, and then it will get some screws, stainless steel screws in certain places. And then I'm going to go over with 1708 and cap the top of that and do 2 laminations over top of the top. So not only will it be strong and waterproof or watertight, it's going to also allow me to, in the future, if I do want to screw into it, just say Scotty downrigger or whatever it is I want to add to the top of the gunnel at one time, maybe a track, I'll have something that won't rot out. Because my other option is, a nice thin piece of plywood. I've got a ton of that cabinet plywood around. But that will be the one area that gets probably the most screws. So to have it, that composite material again, not only will add a strength, but it'll add a longevity to the wood.